Hey guys, today I'm going to be sharing with you my to-be-read pile for April and May. So it's that time, it's time for a TBR. This is what I'm planning on reading for the months of April and May. So yeah, let's backtrack a bit. How did February-March go? February-March went very well, went very successfully, and it actually went a lot better than I was anticipating, because I think I over calculated in some ways, and I ended up having about a spare 2 weeks to go. I thought all of the books I had chosen for that TBR, I thought it was all going to take me right up until the very end of March, but I read much quicker than I was anticipating. So I did. I had enough time to spare that I could incorporate a couple additional books there right at the end of March, so I'm definitely going to kind of be sharing some of that in this video. I'm just going to kind of be incorporating, you know, kind of what was left over from March into this TBR. Yeah. Every book that I did read, though, for February-March, all of those books will eventually be up at some point as a video on this channel, but I do get my written reviews. All of those are up on Goodreads if you're interested in any of those. So yeah, let's get going with what I plan on reading for the next couple months, because I am definitely super excited about some of these. So first off, let's talk about my year of rereading. If you've been with my channel here for a couple months, my big thing that I'm wanting to accomplish this year is every month at least reread an old favorite book of mine. So that's been going very well so far. I've been very pleased, because I don't reread as much as I used to. So yeah, for April, what I plan on rereading for April, this is just really fitting. I thought this was fitting to match up with April, because I love all things the sinking of the Titanic. It's just such a dramatic, interesting story. So I have these two little Titanic books here. These little Titanic books, I first got these books sometime after the James Cameron movie that has, you know, Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio. These books were published maybe within just a few years after that movie had released, and there was all that craze and popularity with the movie. I mean, there was a lot of hysteria about that movie, you guys, and I was definitely part of the Titanic fan club, because it's one of my favorite movies even until this day. And yeah, whenever there's historical fiction about the Titanic, I jump on board immediately. No pun intended. So yeah, these two little Titanic books were released sometime kind of after that movie came out, you know, kind of riding that wave of popularity, if you will. And I guess these would be considered young adult novels, you know, because back in the very late 90s when I first got these, young adult wasn't particularly really its own individual genre just yet, to the best of my knowledge, because I kind of remember going to bookstores and kind of anything with teenagers and children or whatever, all of that was like all merged together, whereas nowadays when you go into bookstores, you know, children's literature is in its own separate section and young adults in its own separate section. So to the best of my knowledge, I do believe these books back then would have probably been qualified as being part of the young adult genre, if you will. So yeah, these are just two little simple Titanic books. They're not very particularly long. Yeah, this book in particular, guys, I reread this first book so many times, to the point that this cover is about to fall apart. It's very flimsy. This whole book is so flimsy. I'm trying to be as delicate as I can with it. I'm seriously worried when I do start rereading it, because then the spine's gonna have to be open. I'm afraid it's gonna start falling apart. The pages are just gonna be falling out. I'm gonna cry. But yeah, what I remember about these two books, because I have reread this series quite a few times, but I reread them a lot back in like the very late 90s into maybe, you know, the first couple years of the 2000s, and I've not really read them sense at all. But what I do remember is this first book focused on a couple of first-class passengers, like young first-class passengers, and then also a trio of some passengers in steerage, and they're young as well. And that it's kind of their story, you know, the first class situation, the third class situation, and, you know, leading up to the sinking of the Titanic, obviously. So yeah, this whole book is very much, it's all Titanic. This second book, by the way, the title, this is called Titanic: The Long Nights, and they're both by Diane Ho. And then the second book in the series is called Remembering the Titanic by Diane Ho. And this entire book is actually the aftermath of what the characters faced in this first book. So yeah, you get to see kind of the survivor's point of view, and characters having survivor's guilt and whatnot, and yeah, characters just having issues, you know. So I love this little duology. It's a really lovely duology. Like I said, I've not reread this series in an incredibly long time, so I'm curious to see how it's going to hold up. I'm worried it might be a little cheesy. We shall see. And then the other book I plan on reading for my year of rereading, because those Titanic books are going to be for April. So then for May, I plan on rereading Atonement by Ian McEwan. And yes, I do have the movie edition here, you guys. I saw James McAvoy and Keira Knightley on this cover, and I was like, yes, sign me up. And this is really rare, you guys, because sometimes I don't read a book until after an adaptation a lot of times. So this was one of the very rare occasions that I actually managed to read this book before the movie came out. Like, I think I read it like a couple weeks before seeing the movie. And I love this book. Yeah, guys, this is just such a harrowing, unbelievable story, and just so many twists and turns, and just what some of these characters do to each other and whatnot. And yeah, a big part of this book, it takes place at Dunkirk during World War II. That's what you need to know about this book. It takes place during World War II, kind of right there at the start of World War II, and kind of going through the war, essentially. But yeah, if you don't know entirely what Atonement is about, it starts off in the summer of 1935, so yeah, we're kind of right there before World War II. It starts off in the summer of 1935, and a little girl, she's 13 years old, her name is Bryony, and she witnesses something. I won't say what. If you've seen the movie, you know what. But she witnesses something between her older sister and is he a gardener? I'm trying to remember if he's like a gardener or something like, I want to say he's a gardener. This little girl, Bryony, witnesses something between her older sister and their gardener named Robbie. And she doesn't quite understand it. She's very conflicted about it. And this sends her into telling this big lie. And once again, I won't say what the lie is. She comes up with this big lie that totally ruins the lives of her sister and her sister's boyfriend, the gardener, and whatnot. And this lie has ramifications for like the entirety of the war, essentially. And that's kind of really all I can say. This is just a powerful, gripping story, and seriously, if you like this book and you have yet to watch the movie, I highly recommend the movie, because yeah, James McAvoy, Keira Knightley, they have some great romantic tension. It's lovely. Okay, so that's all for my rereading goals for April and May. So let's get into the rest of my TBR here. So I'm going to start with The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. So this book, what is it about? It's kind of like a reimagining of Jane Eyre. I think like a modern reimagining of Jane Eyre, and that's what really hooked me, you guys. So meet Jane. Newly arrived to Birmingham, Alabama, Jane is a broke dog walker in Thornfield Estates, a gated community full of McMansions, shiny SUVs, and bored housewives. The kind of place where no one will notice if Jane lifts the discarded, I'm not sure what that word is, and jewelry off the side tables of her well-heeled clients, where no one will think to ask if Jane is even her real name. Meet Eddie, like Edward Rochester, you guys. Meet Eddie, recently widowed. He has become Thornfield Estate's most mysterious resident ever since his wife, Bee, drowned in a boating accident with her best friend. Their bodies lost to the deep. Jane can't help but see an opportunity in Eddie. Not only is he rich, brooding, and handsome, I mean, that's how Mr. Rochester is, you guys, but he could also offer her the kind of protection she craves. Yet, as the two fall for each other, Jane is haunted by the legend of Bee, an ambitious beauty and successful entrepreneur with a rags to riches origin story. How can she, plain Jane, ever measure up? And can Jane win Eddie's heart before her past or his catches up with her? This book, I love this. Like I said, it definitely sounds like a modern reimagining of Jane Eyre, keeping the names pretty much. Jane still being Jane, and then Mr. Rochester, instead of referring to him as Mr. Rochester the whole time, he's called Eddie. And yeah, his estate still being Thornfield Estates. So I'm very interested in this modern reimagining, because I mean, I've definitely seen where this is going, because yeah, I've read Jane Eyre. I know how Jane Eyre, you know, progresses and ends, so I definitely see kind of those threads. And not only does this sound like Jane Eyre, but there's also like these hints of Rebecca in here too, especially like the wife mysteriously drowning at sea or something like that, you know, and Jane having to compete with the memory of the dead wife, you know. It's like it's a mixture of both Jane Eyre and Rebecca, so that should be pretty cool, I think. And next up, you guys, I'm pretty stoked about this one. I don't know if it's just me, but yeah, this is The Charmed Wife by Olga Grushin. I was hooked from the get-go with this book, you guys. Just right here at the very top it says, Cinderella wants her Prince Charming dead. What? Okay, this is what the story's about. Cinderella married the man of her dreams, the perfect ending she deserved after diligently following all the fairy tale rules. Yet now, 13.5 years later, things have gone badly wrong and her life is far from perfect. One night, fed up and exhausted, she sneaks out of the palace to get help from the witch, who, for a price, offers love potions to disgruntled housewives. But as the old hag flings the last ingredients into the cauldron, Cinderella doesn't ask for a love spell to win back her Prince Charming. Instead, she wants him dead. Okay, that just got me right there. It's like Cinderella has gone girl, if you will. The Gone Girl reference, you know, from Gillian Flynn, that book and whatnot. It definitely has almost like a Cinderella meets Gone Girl vibe, and I'm kind of loving that. You know, because a lot of retellings of fairy tales, it's always like, okay, this is how the girl gets the prince, happily ever after, blah blah blah. But you know, we hardly ever get like an aftermath to these fairy tales. And like the synopsis says, it's like 13.5 years and Cinderella and her Prince Charming have been married, but now it's like, okay, I'm fed up, I'm done with this dude, let's kill him. So I'm really interested in that aspect. I mean, what has Prince Charming done to strike the ire of Cinderella, you guys? Has he been out cheating on other women or something? I'm just really curious why Prince Charming, because it seems like he's kind of maybe turned into a bad guy now. He's not so good. He's not so Prince Charming after all. So I'm very curious, you know, the circumstances, why Cinderella is just done with Prince Charming. So yeah, this should be awesome, you guys. I can't wait. And another book published here in 2021 that I plan on getting around to is 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes. And this is a reimagining, retelling of the Trojan War, pretty much the Iliad by Homer, if you will. But yeah, focusing more on the female point of view and whatnot. So yeah, from the Trojan women whose fates now lie in the hands of the Greeks, to the Amazon princess who fought Achilles on their behalf, from Penelope awaiting the return of Odysseus, to the three goddesses whose feud started it all. These are the stories of the women whose lives, loves, and rivalries were forever altered by history's most infamous war. So yeah, that's all I needed to know about this book, is that it's a retelling of the Iliad pretty much, but focusing on solely the women, since the Iliad is very much from the male point of view, if you will, you know, Hector and Paris and Achilles and whatnot, and Agamemnon. So yeah, definitely very, very excited to get to this. So another book that I've been wanting to get around to for a while, I've had this in my TBR pile for like years and years and years, you guys, so I was like, I'm going to try to go ahead and squeeze this book out here in this TBR. This is called The Crown by Nancy Bilyeu. And the synopsis of this, because I couldn't remember, I was like, what is this book even about? And once I read the synopsis, it's like, oh, okay, that's why I got this book, because this sounds really cool. It follows Joanna Stafford, a Dominican nun. She learns that her favorite cousin has been condemned by Henry VIII to be burned at the stake. I'm assuming she's talking about the Duke of Buckingham, because, yeah, he was like Lord Stafford, and her last name is Stafford, so I'm assuming she's talking about the Duke of Buckingham, who Henry VIII had beheaded. So, defying the sacred rule of enclosure, Joanna leaves the priory to stand at her cousin's side. Arrested for interfering with the king's justice, Joanna, along with her father, is sent to the Tower of London. Oh, that's not good. The ruthless Stephen Gardiner, Bishop of Winchester, takes terrifying steps to force Joanna to agree to spy for him. To save her father's life, she must find an ancient relic, a crown so powerful it may hold the ability to end the Reformation. Accompanied by 2 monks, Joanna returns home to Dartford Priory and searches in secret for this long-lost piece of history worn by the Saxon king Athelstan in 937 during the historic battle that first united Britain. But Dartford Priory has become a dangerous place, and when more than one dead body is uncovered, Joanna departs with a sensitive young monk, Brother Edmund, to search elsewhere for the legendary crown. From royal castles with tapestry-filled rooms, to Stonehenge, to Malmesbury Abbey, the final resting place of King Athelstan, Joanna and Brother Edmund must hurry to find the crown if they want to keep Joanna's father alive. And yeah, there's kind of quite a bit more going on here. I'm going to stop there. There's a lot more to the plot. I think that's satisfactory for the plot right there. This sounds awesome, you guys. This sounds like right at my cup of tea. You know, I love this time period and in English history with the monarchy and whatnot, so yes, I can't wait. And then, as I've been doing throughout this year, I've been trying to incorporate some random Disney books that I have just piled up throughout my room that must be read. So yeah, first up is part of the Disney Villains series, and this is Poor Unfortunate Soul by, is it Serena Valentino? Right? I think these are all written by Serena Valentino, yes. And this one is focused on Ursula, obviously, from The Little Mermaid. And once again, because I love showing these covers, you have Ursula here on the cover, and then once you flip open the thing here, then you have the lovely, gorgeous Vanessa right there on the other side. So I love that little detail of all these books, you guys. So yeah, this is very short, very tiny. I'm guessing it's going to be an origin story to how Ursula becomes, you know, the sea witch essentially, and probably why she hates King Triton so much and why she does what she does to Ariel, you know. So yeah, this should be pretty interesting. And then the other Disney book comes from the Twisted Tales series, and so far they've all been written by Liz Braswell, but this one is written by Elizabeth Lim, and this is Reflection. And yeah, all of these Twisted Tales books, all of them ask kind of this what-if question, essentially, because like the Aladdin book, for instance, what if Aladdin never got the lamp, but Jafar got the lamp? And then yeah, like the Sleeping Beauty one, what if the Sleeping Beauty never woke up and she was still stuck in the curse, you know? So they all kind of run with that thing, like twisting some little part of the narrative. And this one sounds really intriguing because I can't even fathom what's going to happen in this book. And this one is asking, what if Mulan had to travel to the underworld? That just seems like it's taken the whole story in a wildly different direction. I mean, if you've seen the cartoon, you know how the cartoon is, so it seems like this is going in a wildly different direction from the cartoon, and like we're going to be going to the underworld? Is Hades going to make a cameo appearance? What's going on? Because yeah, it sounds like something like Shang being her love interest. It sounds like something happens to Shang and he's like mortally wounded and she has to like save his soul from the underworld or something. It sounds very romantic, but yeah, I'm very curious with this one because it does sound just wildly different from the cartoon. And then you guys, I do have some spare time, like at the end of May, so I was like, I'm definitely going to pick from my TBR jar here. I need to pick something that's under 500 pages, let's put it that way. I have just, because when I was kind of doing my calculations, I was like, I can squeeze in another book that's at least 500 pages, but yeah, if it's more than that, it's probably not a good idea, or else I'll get behind with my TBR. So yeah, let's get going here. I've not done a TBR jar pick in like a very long time, so I'm very excited about this. You guys, let's dig deep in there. Okay, I'll go with this yellow one. I feel like I always like pick out a purple one or something. Let's go with this yellow one. Okay, so yeah, this is a perfect choice because it's under 400 pages, so I was looking for something shorter and whatnot. And yeah, what I have picked from my TBR jar here is The Orphan of Cemetery Hill by Hester Fox. Yeah, what is this one about again? This is taking place in 1844. Tabby has a peculiar gift. She can communicate with the recently departed. You know what? I think I just did this in a book haul, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, I'm remembering, because I have a couple Hester Fox books and I can't remember which one is which, but yeah, I did just do this one in a book haul, that's right. So I remember this one now. I'll reread it again. But yeah, Tabby has a peculiar gift. She can communicate with the recently departed. It makes her special, but it also makes her dangerous. As an orphan child, she fled with her sister Alice from their charlatan aunts who wanted only to exploit Tabby's gift so she can profit from the recent craze for seances. Now a young woman and tragically separated from Alice, Tabby works with her adoptive father Eli, the kind caretaker of a large Boston cemetery. When a series of macabre grave robberies begins to plague the city, Tabby is ensnared in a deadly plot by the perpetrators, known only as the Resurrection Men. In the end, Tabby's gift will either save both her and the cemetery or bring about their own destruction. I love this. It has like almost like this, because it takes place in Boston, and yeah, Edgar Allan Poe is like from Boston, right? And it has kind of like this almost very Edgar Allan Poe-esque kind of vibe to it that I'm digging. And yeah, a young woman, a cemetery, she can speak to the dead. Awesome. So you guys, that is it for my TBR for April and May. In the comments below, have you guys read any of these books? Do you plan on reading any of them in the future? Just let me know. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.